All right. Welcome to an epic start. Okay, so I'll go back and edit this. Welcome to Ask a Dev, where sometimes we forget to click the button and go live. So I have been showing you all how to do this for the last 15 minutes, and you all missed all the greatness. But we're going to start all over again. It's one of those days. It's a holiday week here in the US. I hope everybody's doing awesome. My name's Kevin. And as usual, thank you for hopping in and being part of this whole adventure, which is obviously an adventure today. That's why I was asking if anybody, I was like, wow, the chat is really quiet. Are you all seeing this? Is anybody? So anyways, here we go again. So to get things started off with, I just wanted a quick shout out to, I had a couple of shout outs for people who were helping out in Discord. Ramak, Warren, Naroda, Kachu-chan, thank you all for chiming in and helping answer questions for everybody. I very much appreciate that. And then a quick shout out to our Patreon members, our newest Patreon members, Yingjo, Lemon Brother, and Nick B. Really appreciate your support. You're pretty much why we're able to keep this going. I love doing this. It's a lot of fun. I learn a ton from you all, and I learn a lot about humility as well, and clicking buttons. And we're going to be restarting our stream, so this is going to go a little bit longer today. Thank you for the heads up, Rusty. My goodness. All right, let's get restarted again. I'm going to go back and undo everything I just did, and we will start again from scratch. Okay, so here we are back in Unreal. Let's just close it all down and start again. Forced to leave. Okay, so recap, we're working on our quadruped. The whole thing that started this was a quadruped leg. So we're working on a quadruped 101 series. We were looking at maybe building a quadruped leg, but we thought, well, why not just see what's available for us in Unreal, and that's spawned this whole series. So as a quick update as to where we left off, I had said we're not going to torture you all with letting you watch paint dry as I went through and edited the weights in here. So real quick recap. We've got, I just went through and painted these weights so that they're all somewhat reasonable, so that, everything kind of moves with what it's supposed to move. It's not perfect because a lot of the stuff we pointed out last week, volume preservation, etc. But in general, that's what we got going on from our skinning standpoint. So that's all ready to go. And sorry, I'm still recovering from the whole streaming for 15 minutes. But not clicking the button thing. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We are going to, specifically, we're going to be working with Modular Control Rig. It's important to know that this is Unreal Engine 5.5. We're using 5.5 because that's the engine that has all of the newest modules and stuff in it, including all the animal spines and everything. So to get started, what we're going to do is we're going to right click on our skeletal mesh. We're going to choose Create, and we're going to choose Modular. Remember, Control Rig is do it yourself. Modular is use the already created modules that either Epic created or you yourself created. So let's just rename this to our MCAT Control Rig. We're going to open this up. Now, full disclosure, I cheated a little bit this week. I did do a little bit of research before we started this week, because as much fun as it is to watch me stumble, which we've already covered today, and just flounder around, I also don't want to be wasting y'all's time either. So I did do a little bit of trying to troubleshoot why a bunch of this stuff wasn't working for me. But the idea is we open up the Modular Control Rig, there's these sockets, and they tell us what we do right here. And if we just follow the instructions, everything's going to work. However, remember, we made things and life difficult for ourselves, in my case, because I'm not using the same hierarchy exactly, or the exact same naming that Epic's using. So we're going to have to do a little bit of extra work on our end. So, but if we follow the instructions, we need to drag and drop a spine over here. So let's just grab our spine module and drag and drop it here. Now, if you don't see all of these modules, it's probably because you're in an older version of Unreal. Now, it's worth pointing out that once we do that, you'll notice that we have a couple things that are missing here and didn't work. If you don't see this, you're probably looking at your rig hierarchy or your details, etc. And you'll notice there's a lot more options in the connections when you click on details than are over here displayed in the module hierarchy. So a couple things that we need to do. Let's set our pelvis bone, and let's also set our start bone to be spine 1. Now, another thing that is really worth pointing out that I struggled with, yeah, good old hard code, and that's kind of what part of what I'm talking about here. Actually, no, I'll get into that in a second. So we have our spine socket, spine 1. So you'll notice that neck 02 is the spine end bone. So it seems like this module is either hard-coded to use a certain number of spine joints, like a default number, like 5, for example. And I have some sneaky suspicions as to why that is. Or it's using names and a child or whatever. Either ways, this point, the neck 02 is wrong. I'm going to switch this to neck 01. I'm pretty sure the end bone is the first bone of the next chain you don't want it to be, not the last bone in the hierarchy, at least from what I could see in the code. So once we do that, if we compile and we save, one way to check it might be to try rotating. Yeah, so you'll notice that the neck's not moving. This, by the way, this control is really funky for me. I've never used a control like that before. It's like the butt wiggle control, but okay. I think the idea is it's kind of like a forward reverse idea. But anyways, so we have our spine in place. We have our main control, which is cool. Great. So let's go ahead and drop in our neck. Now, if you'll notice, when you do this, depending on how the modules are set up, the next thing will pop in. But if there's a bunch of stuff on top of each other, you won't be able to read it. But this is spine, end bone, neck. It says something about a neck. Let's just drop our neck in here. All right. Now, once again, when we drop our neck in, and we're going to discuss some of how this is all set up at the end, because yeah, we'll have a chat about it. Anyways, so we got our neck socket that filled in nicely for us. The end bone in this one, the end bone is the head. Now, it would be nice if this was called head neck, or it told us. I don't know that it includes the head. Yeah, it doesn't say in the notes or the description that it includes the head. How did I find out that it includes the head? Well, if you right click on this and you choose browse to asset, you can actually open up this module and take a look at what happens. And if you dig down through it, you'll find that there is a check for in one of the arrays in -1, and it saves that one to be the head. And so that's how one way you discover it. The other way to discover it is to just try it. So if you plug in the head as the last end bone, when we grab this head joint and we move it, you'll notice it's moving the head, right? So that's another way to check it. If we switch that to be the neck instead, we won't get the head, and then we add a control and the neck becomes the head. Anyways, that is a way to figure that out. So worth noting. So now that we've got our spine and our neck, let's get our first leg in here. And this is where things start to get interesting. So we don't have the right sockets. We have a pelvis and we have a spine. If I try to take this hind leg and I try to drop it onto the pelvis, it doesn't work. This is, I can't even read that. Let's just see what it does with it. So this hind leg dropped it onto the animal spine socket. Okay, and when I do that, let's just see if this works. If I try to get the upper left back up leg, okay, it filled in. All right, let's see. Left back upper knee, we're gonna go for the left back mid leg, left back low leg, and then finally our foot. Now if this works, then we should see our controls show up once we get this foot in here. Okay, we do. We see controls. However, does it work? It does. Okay, that's cool. Great. So let's compile. Now let's make a couple changes and have a little bit of a conversation. Yeah. So basically, to Warren's point, the connectors are, honestly, the way connectors work is black magic. I did a whole video on it earlier. It's really wild. It's almost like an electron, where an electron is spinning both ways unless you look at it, and then at the instant you look at it, it might be positive, it might be negative. That's the closest analogy I can make to the way connectors work, which is wild. But anyways, because the way you set up the connectors is you're basically going through all the controls, and if it's the one that you're looking at, right? Anyways, whatever. We're not gonna get into it. We're just rigging stuff. Okay, so let's talk about the controls here. If we pick our hind leg, interestingly enough, this, you'll notice that the top socket is, it did get the, oh, actually it put it to the animal spine thigh right socket. That's not what I want. I would actually like this to be the thigh left socket. Thigh left socket. Because this is the left leg. Now be careful with that. Sometimes when you switch something here, the auto resolve will undo everything you've just reset here. Okay, so I just want to make sure that's the left. All right, now once we do that, Lucas, quantum rig, yeah, quantum physics, quantum computing, here we go. Okay, so a couple things. Where's our foot control? We can't see it. Let's just go 1.2 on the scale on the shape of this thing so we can see it. And we're gonna have a little conversation about, and this is where I was when somebody pointed out that I hadn't actually clicked the button to start streaming. Okay, so you'll notice that we have this blue box around the foot. There's generally two main paradigms to consider when you're setting up your controls for your animators, okay? And even if you're your own animator. All right, one is, we used to call it the Michelin Man, and it was named after the tire dude who looked like he was made up of tires. And what you do is you create controls that roughly match the silhouette of your character so that you could actually turn your whole character off and animate with nothing but the controls, because the controls match enough of the silhouette that the animators can make a really good body mechanics pass at the animation without being distracted by the character itself. This is particularly powerful when you're working in situations where the actual character is so slow that the animators can't work real time. So what we would do is we would hide the whole character, and then they would animate with this basically control approximation of the character. Now, the other way to think about it is if your rig's fast enough and you don't want to spend the time creating all of these contextual based selections for controls, is you have this box. For me, if I'm going to use this box, I want to be able to see the silhouette of my character, so I don't want this thing to be solid. So I'm like, okay, great. I'm going to make a solid, I'm going to go ahead and make a different box here. Well, wait a minute. There's no drop down. Okay, so how do I know what all the controls are available? Well, the quick answer is I have not found a way in here, so I wrote a nice little note to Epic. Let's do that right here. Let's say control drop down in modular rigs. And Warren also reported it too. So, but how do we know what they are? Well, here's my cheat code for this. Okay, if we browse to our cat, one way to do this is to have another control rig open. So if we create a control rig for our cat and we open it up, if we just right click on here and create a control for selected, if you pick this control over here on the right, you have this big drop down. It shows you everything. Okay, so in this case, I know I want a box thick. And the reason I want a box thick is because I actually want to be able to see the silhouette of my character. So in this particular case, box thick works for me because I can, what's important about a box thick is you got to remember when you're posing this, you're going to be looking at this character from many different angles. All right, so what's great is that it's easy for the animator to select this control in the viewport. Okay, so that's why I choose box thick, and there's a little bit of overlap, so I can get at this from any angle, and it's easy for me to select this control. All right, and if we pick it, it works, which is great. Okay, so let's do a couple other things let's compile and save for one. All right, so we got our controls there. That's our box thick for that character. The pole vector control is fine. FK control settings, IK control offset, knee bone offset. Okay, so now whether we have that back leg in, when we moved it down, our back leg behaves like a quad leg. Great. Now we're going to get into testing this in a minute, but let's go ahead and do our front leg real quick. And this is a good example. So if it's interesting, it creates two of them. There's one that's parented under the spine and one that's parented outside of the spine. I'm not sure why it does this. If I delete the other one, let's just go ahead and name this. Let's go left back leg, and let's call this left forward leg. Okay, and you'll notice that it picked the wrong socket, completely the wrong socket. So we want the shoulder left for this. And then we're going to have to fill in, we're going to have to fix a bunch of this stuff. So the thigh bone in this case is going to be our left forward up leg. Our upper knee is going to be our left forward mid leg. Our lower knee is going to be our left forward low leg. And then we're going to finally have our foot, which it thinks is the head right now. That's our left forward foot. Now the cool thing is that's already there and set up, and we should have 2 legs working, although there's definitely a lot of twisting going on with that front leg. We'll have to take a look at that in a second. So going back to our forward leg, if we come down here and make the same adjustment that we did for our controls, for our shape controls for the IK foot, let's go 1.2, 1.2. You know, I'm going to keep that at points. Yeah, let's try 1 here. Okay, and then let's go box thick on this as well. Make it easy to pick. Okay, now let's drop a tail in, which is here. Hopefully we picked the right one because everything's collapsed, but we did not. So let's take a look at our tail. Scroll up, spine socket. Start bone is going to be the tail. Tail 01. And our end bone is going to be the end of the tail, which in this case is tail 7. Now if you get this right, you should see all of your controls set up. Yes. So Matthew is asking a question: if you find a bug in Control Rig, what's the best way to pass it on? Epic's actually really amazing about looking out for stuff. So if we find stuff here, they've actually been really great in helping us out with tips in this community. So I actually take all of the stuff we find and I send it off to a couple of my contacts at Epic, and then they'll work on. They'll even ask for scenes, for example. Example files. Parent control. Let's make this the hips. Yeah, it doesn't like that. All right, we'll skip it for now. Let's see if we can get this to work anyways. Default, I want to see something. If we turn on dynamics and we move our character, nope. We definitely need the parent control figured out. Tail, settings control. Doesn't like the hips, you all. Nope, that's not what we want either. I thought there was a tail socket. I mean, they've been pretty good about looking at stuff, especially like, for example, the stuff we found with the nulls and everything. All right, so this is a great example of something that is not working currently. And I had it working at one point. So our tail itself does work, and it does have dynamics. You can see that, which is cool. I love this. I could sit here and do this all day. I love dynamic stuff. So cool. Okay, however, because we cannot get it to parent properly, the tail gets left behind right now. So we need to figure out why the module is not letting me set the parent control. So let's try parenting this to the animal spine, maybe. And if we do that, now will it let me pick the hips? It does. Okay, so there's a great example. I had to parent this to the animal spine in order to be able to properly pick that. And then theoretically, if we move our, so if we move our hips now, our tail wags. This is cool. All right, we're almost there, y'all. In the sense that we almost have an animatable rig and we can start working with it. So let's compile and save this. And let's do one other thing. You're thinking, oh, you know what? I've done the left back leg. I'm going to mirror that over. I'm not going to do the work. Well, we've mentioned this before. And unless you're using the underbar L or underbar R, a lot of times the mirroring stuff doesn't go well, but we'll try it anyways. Let's just try it. Left underbar, right underbar. And underbar is an underscore. I forget who I worked with who called it underbar, but just as an idea. Oh yeah, that's true. But whatever, I'm still gonna do that. Anyways, if we right click and you're thinking, oh, I'm just gonna mirror this, all right? And what you do is you search and replace for left underbar and you replace it with right underbar. Axis to flip. Let's try. You know what? I'm gonna try the X this time. Originally, you know what? Let's do it the way I originally did. We'll do Z. Okay, when we do that, it flips it. You'll notice my leg gets twisted. It's jacked up on the right side. Okay, so let's go ahead and delete that. And let's try again. This time let's change our axis to flip to see if we get a better result with the x-axis being flipped. And we go left underbar, right underbar. I'm not expecting this to go super well, but we'll see. Nope, it's also flipped. So what I found was I just had to drop it in. And the minute I dropped it in manually and reset it up, we were good to go. So if we do this, and we take this and we rename this to be our right back leg. Then we go through and we do all this stuff again. So for our right back leg, we can go up leg here, upper leg, mid leg, low leg for our knee, and then finally our foot. Okay, so you'll notice that our controls showed up and our geometry is all nice and pretty. So we haven't messed anything up. So let's see here. In Modular, can I also write blueprints? I'm not sure what that means. Was the same rig. It's interesting that you ask about the Smurfs movie. What is it that prompted that? I actually worked on Smurfs, which was probably not my favorite project, but I did work on it. Okay, I'm parenting this right back leg into it. So we have all of our stuff and we're gonna make the same changes we made to our controls. But generally speaking, most of the rigging that I learned, I see where that came from. Okay, yeah. So most of the rigging I learned working at Sony and a couple other different film studios. So a lot of those practices that I got brainwashed into when I was learning how to rig came from movies like the original Spider-Man's. Lion the Witch in the Wardrobe. I did a lot of stuff, all the Quadruped stuff on Lion the Witch in the Wardrobe, Monster House, so many things on Monster House, just lots of different things. But I actually did not rig on Smurfs. I actually animated on Smurfs instead. So we're going to go box thick. So that's our right leg. Okay, and just to test real quick, let's just see our back and our everything's good. We got one more leg to go, y'all. All right, so let's just knock this out. So let's take our hind leg and I'm just gonna drop this. I'm gonna skip. I'm not gonna even try to drop it on any of the sockets that are showing up in the viewport because it's killing me so far. It hasn't been working. I'm just gonna drop this in here and we're gonna call this right forward leg. And the socket that we're going to go for is that spine socket again. Or actually, let's go right shoulder. Oh, and actually this right back leg, rather than being the spine socket, we can make this the thigh right socket. Hopefully that didn't mess. Oh, it did what I, wait, did it? No, it didn't. Okay, good. All right, so same thing, upper, so our thigh for our right forward leg is the right forward up leg. Our upper knee is our right forward mid leg, and our lower knee is our low leg, and then our foot is our foot, our right forward foot. There we go. And same thing that we did before. Let's just knock this out. We're going with a box thick on this one, and we'll go 1.2, 1.2, 1.2, 1, 1.2. I think it was 1.2. 1 maybe? Yeah. So it's a little bit shorter. All right. And we theoretically have an animatable character. So let's compile and save this. So all of our legs bend. The front legs are awfully sensitive. They are noticing how these things spin up front. This is when I like to go lit wireframe. You can see how quickly they're spinning out. So these controls here, I believe there's, if we just go to wireframe, there's a control in here. Yep, this box control right here. This is used to, let's see here. So basically, let's see, compile. We're now at a point where we are basically taking a look at what spawned this entire series. Okay, and that is taking a look at the quadruped leg that is built into Unreal Engine. Now, it looks like we have a little bit of an issue with our front leg in the sense that the front leg was built, it almost looks like it is built to bend the other way. Yes, we can. But I'm not at that. I don't think I can do that. I know I can do that in an animation sequence. I don't know if I can do that inside of the modular editor. Warren's just saying if we go to the animation window, we can set the controls as overlays. But taking a look at our right forward leg, what I'm curious about is there are actually two pole vectors on these legs. You'll notice if we take a look at the back one, let's go back to lit here. If we go take a look at the back one, as we lift this, everything's bending the way I want it to. The front is spinning awfully. There's a twist that's happening there that I'm not super excited about. So either there's another pole vector. So that's our back leg. Where is this is what we were trying to get to, y'all. We were trying to get to the point where we could evaluate this. So let's see what we've got. Right now, when I move this leg, for the most part, if we just move the spine and everything, it looks pretty good. I'm like, oh, okay, I can work with this. Moving it backwards, I can totally work with this. Moving it forwards, it looks sort of unstable. Okay, now, as I was saying, there should be two pole vectors on this. So we have our IK control settings. This is our shape. PV control settings. Let's try global space. Ooh. No, it doesn't like those. And also that's changing this back one. Like if we change this, notice where the sphere, that big sphere goes, it disappears. So that's just that one. So we need and these are FK control settings. IK control offset. Maybe that's what we're looking for. So let's try. Hold on a second. This may not be what I think it is. Where is this? It looks like it's moving this pole vector. Knee bone offset. Let's try. If we look at our knee bone, this bone is Y. Y is forward. Okay, so let's go back to that. Let's take a look at our knee bone offset, which was down here. Let's try 20, 100, 50. No change. Okay, so that's not changing it either. Auto determine axis. Enable PV follow. Yeah, we need a way to stabilize this. This control right here, this thing is called what? This is the thigh control. And the fact that our knee is rotating in this way is not fun. So let's do it. Let's do some sanity check here, because this is what we wanted to get into. I was thinking we might be able to animate today, but we can't do that if this isn't set up. So same thing. Let's go animal spine. And we're going to go start bone is going to be pelvis. Oh no, spine. And the pelvis is the pelvis, neck is the neck. Great. Let's drop in a leg back here. And this leg is going to be horse link. Left foot and spine. Thigh bone is spine. That doesn't seem right. Okay. Oh, the horse bone is not the right bone either. Even the one that comes with the sample pack isn't set up quite right. The knee bone should be the calf. Hold on, what is this bone called? This is the left thigh. This is the calf and the horse link. That's an interesting name for it. Okay. So the horse link is the lower one. And also I dropped in a leg, not a hind leg. That's probably part of the problem. Here's the hind leg. Okay, that's a little better. Okay, and that all filled in nicely. So if we grab this control and we move it up, okay, maybe that didn't fill in correctly. No, it did not. So the thigh is a thigh, the upper knee is a calf. This should be the horse link. If you're doing this through, and this would be the foot. Okay. And then if we grab the control, that is way more stable, y'all. This is what I'm expecting to see. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the differences here. This bone is oriented with X down the axis. Hold on, let's compile and take a look. This bone is oriented with X down the axis, Y is back, and Z is inside. What do we have? We have X down the axis, Y is back, and Z is inside. Interesting. And our thigh, or whatever we want to call this thing, is Y back. Okay, same thing. All right, there's got to be a setting that is different. These are the module settings for this hind leg. Those are all the same and they shouldn't be affecting us. Our IK control, foot control settings are in local space. That all seems reasonable. We have our box solid, our shapes. Not worried about proxies. PV control. FK control transforms. IK offsets, there aren't any. Primary axis, secondary axis, 100011. 100010. I do not see any difference between their leg and the leg that we're using. So figuring out why our leg is unstable when it goes forward is going to be a little bit of a research project. Yeah, that twists right in. There's got to be something we're missing here. This thing, let's take a look at our rig hierarchy. This thing is parented to spine. I would expect at least the same behavior. All right, let's take a look at questions while I'm trying to wrap my head around this. I'm working on a project at the same time. Can you suggest an alternative in the chat on how to make the AI react to the flashlight? Gladney, thanks for hopping in. Welcome to the live stream. I'm glad the tutorials have helped. Okay, so that one's a little bit jacked. Let's check the other side. Maybe it's a side thing. Now it just seems super unstable. This is, I have currently selected the left backup leg, which has 180 degrees, 0, negative 90. I'm curious. Details. 180 degrees, 0, almost negative 90. There's like 0 difference there. That looks pretty good. Okay. It's already 12:25. We're definitely running out of time. So look, the goal here is basically to get to a point where we're hopefully going to be animating, at least by next week. For some reason, we have our upper leg is unstable, which is going to cause us problems whenever we go to move our foot forward. So we have got to figure out why this is twisting like this, as it is right now. It's almost like our pole vector parent is connected to the body offset control. Where's their pole vector parent? That might be worth looking at. Pole vector parent, it's also the body offset control. No, that's not it. Body offset control. Everything is the body offset control. These are all body offset controls. Okay. Thigh socket. Left thigh socket. Spine socket. I'm gonna try something. Compile. What? Okay, I found something. This will work. I don't know why. There's got to be something that's going on in the hierarchy in the way this is set up, but all I did was change our left back leg to go to the spine socket. The question is, does it still work with everything? Yep, it does. Okay, that's good. Oh. Okay, here's my guess. Here's my guess. This is my pitch. Because we don't actually have a left shoulder or a right shoulder or any of those things, we need to at least pick something that is legit part of the rig. And so in this particular case, by putting it in the left spine, Spino 1 socket, it's actually part of the rig. So if there was a left, but we don't have one, right? See this thigh right socket, left side, none of these exist. So my guess is if we just change all of these that are currently parented to, and we just go to spine sockets on all of these, spine socket, spine socket. It's going to change our hierarchy a little bit, but it may stabilize our legs. All right, compile that. Now let's check our front leg as well. Much better. Okay, that's what it was. So wherever it is, somewhere in the module, something is getting set up in a way where if that socket doesn't exist, I guess it's not getting paired in. A couple of things that we might be able to do is we might be able to add our own socket by just like in the hierarchy, just going ahead and adding them. Like for example, we could do, I think we can right click here, new socket. I don't know, do you want to try that, or do you want to try to set up a quick scene to see if this thing's even animatable? What do you all want to do? Theoretically, we have everything we need to animate and start testing out the quadruped leg stuff. It's also worth mentioning at this point, like why are we doing this? So I'm at a point where I want to work on my game. I want to work on my animations. I want to work on whatever it is. And could we build our own quadruped leg? Absolutely. Would it probably be exactly what we wanted? For sure. But I'm at a point now where if I can get something that's good enough, I don't want to reinvent the wheel every time. So hopefully the Epic one is good enough that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Now, I'm on the fence. We'll see. Good enough is going to be a thing. And also, as much fun as this is, a lot of this art stuff I'm not worried about. Now, if you are a professional, you're working and you're looking at Control Rig for work, etc., it maybe makes sense to set up your own quadruped leg based on animator feedback, because you're only going to do that once. Once you set up your own quadruped leg module, theoretically, animators will just use that. You'll have that one, and it'll be exactly what you want. But in this case, I would rather not reinvent the wheel if I can just get what I need from what's already here. And hopefully there's a lot of really cool stuff in here. The only way to test it and figure it out, though, is to start animating with it. So we can do that. The plan was to try to animate a run cycle next week. That's kind of on the schedule. Now that we have it all in here, mostly today was all about like showing you some of the challenges of working in here, especially if you're using a different set of naming. So interestingly enough, there is now a connection here. It's a bone connection. And if we go back to the lioness, this is a socket. If we look at the rig hierarchy, left spine socket, left thigh socket is to the thigh. So if we wanted to try something, let's try something just for fun. If we go to the thigh, this back up leg, and we add a new socket, left back up leg socket. What I want to try is I want to try to take the left back up leg, and I want to move its socket. Also, sometimes this happens where you click on details, it doesn't work, it doesn't show up. Just click off and click back on. So rather than using the spine socket, let's see if our left back up leg socket is here. Okay, so it took it, that worked. We created our own socket. Now, is the leg still stable? It is. It is. That may be a better way to go, y'all. Just for kicks, I want to look at something on the lioness. Yeah, it has the same thing. Okay, cool. So I think what I like better is, rather than having all this stuff on the, maybe the spine socket, is potentially create a socket for each of these, but it works for now. We could just go ahead and keep going. Same thing for the front leg. If we go to our rig hierarchy, we can just right click new socket. And then for our left forward leg, we can, in our details, change this to the left forward leg socket. And when we compile, we should still have full control of our spine, and our legs are still stable, which is great. And we do have our animation controls. So don't forget, you can build your own sockets even within a modular rig that's using existing modules. You don't have to stick with just what they have. Okay? So we'll do that to both sides. And then what we'll do is next week we'll start animating this thing. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to do a quick edit on this video and edit out the first 15 minutes when I was going through all of this stuff, showing you all how it all worked. And you all couldn't see anything. But other than that, what do you all think? Did you have any questions before we wrap up today? Let's bring up our chat real quick. T-Mock is working on a project. Can you suggest an alternative chat on how to make the AI react to a flashlight? Yep, we're definitely going to animate it next week. So we're just going to try to animate a full cycle next week, a full run cycle. And I think that will answer a bunch of questions. Yeah, McCann, they're all in the live section, so you can get ready. You can look at all of the progression as we go, but basically we're just progressing our way through to building an animatable character is kind of where we're at. And this is building the control part of it. Oh, Warren, that's great. I'm glad that they helped a little bit. Oh, actually, there's a really important thing I wanted to show you all before we go. Okay, so even though we're not going to be animating until next week, we've talked about kind of taking a look at how and evaluating the controls we have. There's some funky things about the animal neck I want to point out to you all. So if we come in here and we take a look and we default this to FK, and we take a look at our FK control settings and we scale these to, let's try 2 and 2, 2.5 and 2.5, and let's go 0.3, 0.4, 0.2. Okay. So this is our FK neck. Now, what is going on here? Yeah, all right. So this is freestyle commentary. This is Ask a Dev commentary on some of the rigging choices. I am not saying we should fix these or whatever rigging choices are. Every individual rig setup is almost like its unique own thumbprint. It depends on who built it, etc. But there are some things in here that I'm not sure are quite ready. So, for example, this is the character's neck. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are 7 controls in this neck. From what I can tell, there is no setting that I can change that will change the number of controls in this neck, even though there are only 3 joints. There's only 3 neck joints. I have 7 FK controls. So if I pick each of these controls and rotate them, you'll see my character bends his neck. But the only one that really matters is probably the end one. So there's that one. That one. So these 2 are probably only, I'm going to guess these 3. So these 3 are the only 3 that matter. Everything else in between is just garbage. So where's this coming from? All right, so this is coming from a couple things to think about. One is, you'll notice there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, this is kind of hard to zoom in. Let me see if I can show you in the rig hierarchy. if I pick this joint, neck. Where's our neck? Spine. 7. Here it is, neck. I think this is it. Let's just do a search for neck. Okay, so here's our actual joints, neck 1, 2, and 3. And then they have 1 through 7 neck rig joints. Now, even if I change any of the values on the details, the number of joints that come in here does not change. I get 7 no matter what I do. There's zero reason for this to be called have 7 joints in it, unless the underlying. So basically, the underlying rig is actually, and this is where we get into it. If we right click on this, I want to show you all. If we open up the animal neck and we go to take a look at it, you'll notice something. Everything in the animal neck is set up. If we take a look at the My Blueprint section, for example, you'll notice there's create FK tail controls, create FK IK switch, tail, etc., tail viz. There's all these things that are called tail. So my thinking, what I believe happened is when they set this up, they basically they started with the FK or the tail as a base, which makes sense because a lot of times a varied number of joints in a neck setup works just like a tail. You want to be able to move it from the top, you want to be able to move it FK or IK and stabilize, etc. But in the process, when they did that, and if you look in here, anyways, there's a bunch of references to tail, and nowhere in here does it take into account the number of joints that you specify in the animal neck. So if we come back here to the details for the neck, and even if we come down here and we specify number of controls as 3, I want you to, these controls, these are the IK controls, not the FK controls. So changing this number doesn't change anything about how many FK controls. And if we look at the FK control settings, if we look at the number of main controls, 2, 1, none, does nothing, completely ignoring it. So this FK neck is going to need some work, is point 1. The other thing that I wanted to point out is if we default back to IK, there are some controls that are in here. If we go to wireframe, there's a bunch of controls that are here. These guys, okay? These are an offset that are important to know about for necks. So if we come back to our neck and we take a look at our head neck settings, let's see here, shape, transform, is this the right one? Let's try 10, 0, 10, 0, no, that's not the right one. Head settings, head local settings, transform. One of these controls this shape. You just gotta find it, y'all. Head settings, transform, head local settings, limits, transform proxy, FK control settings, shape. Here we go. Primary, Spain, primary character. Okay. You'll notice if I go 5, you'll see 3 controls show up. If I go 2, 1, oh no, that doesn't change that. Where is it? Initial space, shape, box solid. Is that a solid box that's in there? Yes, it's a box solid. So that should be this one. Let's try 1, 1, 1. That is not changing it. There's a way to get these controls to move outside the neck. and right now it is not working. But what's the big point though here is it looks like they reused the tail, and in here I think if I was like I literally, if I was going to set something up, I would have to do some work in here. Like the neck in particular needs to be updated so that if I say there's only 3 joints in the neck, I would expect there only to be 3 FK controls, unless you're driving IK as FK, and then you can change it. But in that case, this is just a little bit messy right now. Just as a call out, it's not a knock on Epic by any means. They're cranking so fast and getting all this stuff in here, but it is worth pointing out that is going on in here. The other thing that's worth pointing out is I am not, oh wait, do I have a search? No, I don't. Okay, I have some thoughts on the way that they are doing some things with some of the naming. So the idea, basically the way the idea of for example how the spine works and the neck works and just a lot of modules in general, is what they do is they create this phantom hierarchy. So there's actually, they're not really messing with your joints. They're not really controlling those. What they do is they put an extra set of joints in there, and then they're having yours, the original ones, follow their set of joints, and that's how they're making this so that it can be independent. However, if we're going to do that, that's great, except the naming of this stuff is, I've not seen anything like it before. Let me just go with that, okay? The idea that we're going to type out the word phantom every time, I would have come up with, it is kind of clear, but it is at least worth, noting that they are creating a whole separate set of hierarchy called phantom. But on one case for the legs, it's phantom rig. But then when you look at the neck, it's just neck rig. It's not neck phantom rig. There's no consistency between these elements. So it's just worth pointing out that this is different. And this is probably different because of what I said at the beginning, which I can't remember was when I wasn't streaming or was, but anybody who sits down to build a quadruped leg component, every single person who does it's going to do it slightly differently. And so what we're probably seeing here is the difference between 2 different people building these elements. If I was going to use this in production, I would want to have this be consistent. So it's just something to note, to call out. Does that mean that I'm going to go do all of that work if I can get the animations I need to get out of it? No. But once again, most of this work I'm doing for you all, because actually, if I'm going to animate, I'm probably going to animate in Maya right now, because I have 25 or 30 years of experience in Maya. I am just way faster in Maya. There's just no way. And as long as I can continue to use Maya basically at the current price point with my current tools and everything like that, there's just an opportunity cost standpoint. There's no reason for me to switch. So I'm just kind of going through this with you all to hopefully help give some tips and things that I found along the way. Another great one, just looking at this naming, dude, look at this. Hind leg left underbar 01 rig. Like, I would expect this to fill in with something. That's probably because of our naming, but this hierarchy becomes very cluttered. Very cluttered. So I did want to call that out. It was something that I noticed. So maybe, let's see if we have any other questions here. The proxy rig bones existing all the other modules now as of yes. And they did that specifically because they wanted to decouple the bones from the rig itself. So you could have any number of joints for the spine or any naming for the spine, and it was easier to rewire. So it makes sense. I get it. It's just more of a general, like, the OCD nature of my rigging is I would want that to be consistent across modules, so it was clear, as well as other stuff. But yes, that is also a really good point. Warren points out that using this as a runtime means you've basically more than doubled your joints and controls. So as I mentioned in one of our previous control rig videos, this is all about creating an animation control rig to give to animators to create source art assets. I would not use this for runtime. so far, even Epic's implementations for runtime is its own standalone control rig module that is minimalistic as possible. And you can see that, for example, if you load up the third-person character project that comes with Unreal Engine, there's an IK leg and then there's literally just 2 IK legs as an example. So yeah, just as a quick heads up. Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and call today a wrap. This is Warren's last comment. This is why we ended up renaming our bones and auto-orienting in the tools to avoid extra phantom rigs and compatible control rigs to share amps. Yeah, totally. Absolutely. Lucky Dogs, is there a way to get an email alert when you go live? I don't want to miss the next one. So I believe if you subscribe, you can. If you subscribe to the channel, I think it'll ping you. The other thing that will happen is I try to post them the weekend before, but sometimes I've been late. And so for example, I'll pre-post the scheduled one last night. And if you are subscribed, it should tell you about that. But even if it's not, generally speaking, we shoot for every Wednesday at 11:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So this time. So depending on your time zone, I don't know what time that is. Hopefully that'll help. But yeah, we shoot for 11:30. And if for some reason you don't see it or we're not here, then that's why I say do check the calendar just in case I do something crazy like take a vacation one day. But even those, I usually try to do a, what do they call it? It's a premiere where I will be watching a pre-recorded thing with you so I can answer questions as we go. So, all right, y'all. Things were a little bit crazy today. Thanks for your patience. Thanks for bearing with me. As always, I hope everybody has an amazing day. For everybody who's in the US or has a holiday this week, I hope you have an amazing holiday week. Take a few days off. And I will see you all next week where we will try to animate a quadruped run cycle live. That should be entertaining. Take it easy, everybody. Catch you on the next one.